Well, after another special session of the legislature this week, Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law two wide-ranging immigration enforcement bills that will, as the Miami Herald puts it, usher in a new wave of requirements that aim to ensure that Florida is well-positioned to help President Donald Trump identify and deport scores of immigrants who are in the country illegally. Just a few days ago, the governor was threatening to veto the legislature's version of an immigration bill that was passed last month, calling it weak. Here's what the governor is now saying.
All in all, I think this is really, really strong. I commend the legislature for stepping up to the plate. If they're able to pass the proposals as presented now, they can expect my strong support.
When the part-time legislature meets in special session, it costs taxpayers an additional $50,000 per day. The regular session starts next month. Democrats call this week's session a waste of time.
This is our second special session within 30 days to address a problem that really the federal government should be working on. So that means that we have missed opportunities to focus on issues that are important to Floridians, like lowering the cost of health care or their auto insurance or their property insurance. So yeah, a lot of time has been wasted on this while the Republicans in the legislature and the governor tries to suck up to Donald Trump.
And Republican State Senator Joe Gruder said this about the bills. He said, "This is about maximum collaboration and coordination with the Trump administration. We have a president who's laser focused and a governor and cabinet who are laser focused on this side." But meanwhile, the Democrats are not so happy about the bills. Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried said today the Florida legislature passed the most extreme anti-immigration legislation in the country, which creates a new state crime that will make it easier to target immigrants and kick streamers out of college. Families will be separated, students will be saddled with debt, and fear will fracture our communities. And Kimberly Leonard, let's start with you. What are some of the provisions of the bill, and how did they reach a compromise? They were at odds just 2 weeks ago.
I know. It was such a big turnaround, and it was very interesting to watch all the leaders come together yesterday, praising each other. There was kind of a love fest going on. But what happened is that they really wanted to win on this. They felt like Florida should be first. And in talking to the Republican Party of Florida, they would often tell me that they saw this as the #1 issue that they got inroads on at the ballot box and why people elected them. So what the bill would do, first of all, it allows more local law enforcement officers to receive training to be able to essentially help federal immigration officers in order to have the state assist with deportations. And turn people over. One of the more controversial provisions that it has, which was also mentioned, is that it gets rid of in-state tuition for dreamers. Those are people who were brought to the U.S. as children, who are undocumented, who grew up here, and so they'll no longer be able to receive that in-state tuition rate. It also makes it a crime to enter Florida as someone who is undocumented, which is something that we haven't had. And it creates a new enforcement board for immigration. This was one of the big sticking points in the bill initially, who would be in charge of it. What they ended up doing was that they created, instead of giving it all to the agriculture commissioner, which is what the legislature had wanted in the first place, they're essentially splitting it with the governor, the agriculture commissioner, the state attorney general, and the chief financial officer of the state. And if they make decisions on this, they all have to be unanimous. So they ended up sort of compromising on that. But if you'll recall, DeSantis is actually set to appoint the next attorney general as well as the next state chief financial officer. So those who will be on this role will have close governor ties or be the governor himself up against Wilton Simpson for some of these big decisions on immigration.
And Kimberly, is there a bonus to law enforcement officers who cooperate with the federal government? Is there a $1,000 bonus if they cooperate with the federal government in turning over some undocumented immigrants?
It's that, but it's also training that is provided. So there's $250 million that are set aside just so that local law enforcement officers know what to do, know where to go. Basically Trump wants support from states on this. He's going to be getting a lot of resistance from blue states who are already coming up with ways to sort of Trump-proof their own states. And so that's why you're seeing Florida go in the opposite direction. And I think part of it too is DeSantis also, trying to make nice with Trump after what was a contentious primary during the 2024 election. And so he is finding ways to show that he's a good sport and that, they're going to support what Trump does and have basically Florida be first on anything like this. So I don't think it's the last issue that we'll see Florida try to take charge on.
And Janelle, something was left out of the bill, and I want to read from Lawrence Maurer of the Tampa Bay Times. This is what he reports. He says there's one topic that was off the table, though, going after the companies hiring undocumented immigrants. In bills passed by the legislature and signed by DeSantis on Thursday, state lawmakers are not requiring more companies to screen workers through E-Verify, the federal database that confirms an employee's citizenship status. They are not assigning more resources to enforce it and aren't increasing penalties for companies who violate it. The governor had the E-Verify power all along, really only used it sparingly over the last 3 years.
Yeah, so this is a provision that's really aimed at, nobody in the GOP-controlled legislature or in the executive office wants to be viewed as anti-business. So this is a way to kind of throw a bone, almost to Wilton Simpson in a way, to say that, we're not going to harass your business practices, we're not going to get in the way. And you have to understand, too, that there's an underlying conversation that's not been part of this debate, and that is that a lot of this immigration push stands to harm most the agriculture industry, because a lot of the labor that pick citrus and tomatoes and things like that, a lot of that is undocumented labor. So there's been a lot of talk about that driving prices up. So I think kind of the quiet part that's not being said out loud, might have something to do with prices at the grocery store.
All right, Hunter, what's your take on the bill that was passed, or the two bills that were passed and signed into law?
I think it was a good compromise between the governor and the legislature. There was a lot of heated moments for the past couple of weeks, so I'm glad they came to some type of amicable agreement. One of the most important things about this that I think a lot of people are overlooking is that the group between the CFO, the governor, the ag commissioner, and it is basically just under the FDLE still, and the governor still has control of that. So enforcement is still going to be under the governor. This little task force is more on funding. It's going to be assistance, data gathering, cooperation with the feds. So I think one thing that's really important is to realize that Governor DeSantis isn't, going to have to run everything through this task force. It's still going to be his show in a way. So I think a lot of people are overlooking that, and I think the governor still won out on this. He still got a lot of the things he wanted in this bill. There's still some things that are kind of contentious in there. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited about it.
And Hunter, one of the things that was taken away was help in college tuition for Dreamers. Are you okay with that?
I'm not opposed to it. The way I look at it is this way. It's a high risk, high reward situation. If you come into the country illegally, it's a crime regardless, right? If you come into the country illegally, you're risking your future on this. And the parents knew that. Unfortunately, the kids were they were put up as chips on this. They were just
aren't the kids kind of innocent victims?
In a way, yeah. I wouldn't call them victims. I say they're innocent in this situation, but their parents used them to stay, and then they were hoping that they were going to get the free ride. Do I think that those people should be kicked out of the country, the kids? No, I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that there should be a reward, though, for the risk that they took when they came here.
I mean, you're not giving them a handout, though, to be clear. This was just giving them in-state tuition. So It's not entirely a handout. It's not like they get free. I mean, some of them might, but...
Well, they get reduced tuition, but the question is, will they drop out of college? If they're in college, will they drop out of college? Victor, what are you hearing? You're part of LULAC, one of the Latino groups.
I'm
what
also
are you hearing?
president of the Hillsborough County Democratic Hispanic Caucus and the state caucus.
What are you hearing about the bill?
And I want to make several really key points that are important. Number one, this had nothing to do with immigration. It had everything to do with DeSantis running for president. Because what they accomplished in this bill was, and this is actually a part of 4 or 5 different sessions about immigration that they've had to pass these bills. And they've given billions of dollars into this program of immigration. And you know how many people from Florida that Florida's deported out of the state? 0. Not one immigrant that's illegal has left Florida because of anything Florida does. Because number one, ICE is the one that handles this. This is a federal government responsibility. This is all for show horse. What was interesting for me is to see the legislature push back, because they've told, a lot of Republicans I know have told me probably they're just tired of getting pushed around by the governor, telling them what to do. They overrode they overrode a veto, which is shocking that the Republicans would fight the governor on this. And there's a bunch of other vetoes coming too. So the legislature, House and Senate, is finally going to be pushing back against the governor on a lot of the stuff. And number two, this entire bill is unconstitutional because inside that bill, there's a provision that if you are illegal and you murder somebody, you're automatically getting a death penalty with no trial, no ability to defend yourself. That's blatantly unconstitutional.
So you would expect lawsuits, but the House Speaker Perez, the Senate President Albritton, they had nice things to say about the governor this week. The governor had nice things to say about the Agriculture Commissioner. I mean, you're saying
it's all Mickey Mouse. I mean, really, I'm telling you, they have spent we have appropriated billions of dollars in this state to get rid of illegals, and they haven't gotten rid of one yet. So that's what I'm trying to say. This is all a show horse thing for the governor to look good. Yes, they kissed and made up, but this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen in this next session coming up here in a few weeks.